Hi, late starters. In today's episode, I talked to my good friend Stephanie McHugh, a stand up comedian, and we told surprisingly few jokes during the episode. We talked more about what it was like to get started as a stand up comedian later in life. She has opened for acts such as Kathleen Madigan. She has a new dry bar comedy special, and she is crushing it. Listen in. Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams. Late Starters, it's your host, Andrea Vall. I am laughing because I am here with my dear friend, Stephanie McHugh. We were just cracking up. We finally had to hit record. So fun. Stephanie McHugh I am like laughing so hard I can't even say her name. Stephanie McHugh is an amazing comedian. She has a new dry bar special out. She has performed all over the place on cruise ships. I mean, really all over the world at this point, on
Yeah.
the seas
Yes.
and the land.
Yes.
So welcome, Stephanie. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Andrea. I'm
This is
super
so
excited
awesome.
to be here.
I know, so awesome. So I am excited to get started and talk about doing stand-up comedy later in life because
Yeah.
normally we're talking about like 40s 50s. I know you kind of technically got started doing stand-up in your 30s, but it's a that's late for comedy, I feel like.
It is really late. And I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids. So that's a very different lifestyle than most people who start stand-up comedy in their
Right.
20s, which I meant to do, by the way. When I lived in downtown Chicago, that would have been a perfect time to do it.
Exactly. I
But I
I
just
was in
didn't.
Chicago. I know. I was in Chicago too, and I did improv comedy. People are like, "Oh, did you work, doing improv comedy? That's a huge mecca for." I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, no, didn't start till I came out to Denver."
But Denver actually now is a great place to do I mean, it always has been, but there's just so
Yeah.
much out here in the
Yeah,
in the area.
Denver is an amazing place to
Yeah,
do comedy. Actually, there's so much it is. It's really it's been growing. Even I feel like even after COVID, there's even more going on lately. So,
yes,
yeah. So why don't you just tell us a little bit? Let's dive into your backstory and how you got started doing stand up with, what
yeah.
prompted that?
I always loved stand-up comedy. My cousin got this, Steve Martin's album. I think I was in 6th grade, and I just thought he was hilarious. I always loved it. I moved to Chicago in my 20s, with my good friend Michelle, and we lived downtown, but I just didn't do it. Like, I almost signed up for a class, and, it was like $125, and I thought, "That's just too much money. I just can't do that."
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah.
right? But I think it was a mental thing. For whatever
Mhm.
reason, I just wasn't it just I didn't wanna do it yet. And so then, I married, someone in Chicago. I moved back to Colorado. He moved, to Colorado, and why humor is so important to me is when it's fun. And I have people would say, "Are you the funny one in your family?" Nope, not really. I think they're all funny. I'm just the one who's like, "Hey, let's go to a bar at midnight on Colfax and go to an open mic and try these jokes out." That would be the differentiating point. But, when I was in junior high, my family moved from Indiana to Durango, Colorado, a small mountain town, and I wore a brace on my back for scoliosis. It's tall and gangly, and so I felt very awkward, and one of my friends, was just I thought, uh I mean, she was beautiful, Hispanic, had beautiful feathered hair,
Oh, oh, gosh, the
I
feathered hair, I'm
I
telling you.
right? I had PE first hour, so, like, anything that I could get done was gone, and I would go to her house after school, and her dad, struggled with alcoholism, and so he could be really brutal to her. And I found that one day after school, we were watching cartoons, and he said, "You're so pretty," to me, which was awkward when you're in middle school. And she told him to be quiet, and he told her to shut up, bitch. And something just flew out of my mouth, and I made them both laugh. And I cannot remember what it was. But that was like the power of humor for me. It can really change the tone of a room like that. And growing up, you just weren't supposed to be mean or anything like that. I'm a people pleaser, so humor was great for that. And as the 2 years later, she's diagnosed with ovarian cancer and
Oh,
died. And her mom always said, "You should come by the house." And I just couldn't do it. And I felt bad that I couldn't make her laugh towards the end.
mm,
Um, so when I had kids, fast forward, moved to back to Colorado, and I had two daughters. I just really wanted to let her mom know that someone thought about her daughter, that she's still. So I wrote her a letter, and for whatever reason, I couldn't mail it right away. You will see a reoccurring theme. I can't do things like right away. I have to wait, worry, and then do it.
yeah, let's just obsess
Wait,
about this.
worry, and then do
Let's
it.
let's obsess a little more
Yeah,
and then yeah.
because if we worry, then maybe it'll work out. But so I didn't send it right away, and then I mailed it, and she wrote me back right away. And I always thought her birthday was on November 16th, because my friend in junior high was 17th, high school was 18th. So I thought, ooh, I really connect with people whose birthday is, and her birthday was on the 4th, and her mom got my card on her birthday
Oh,
and wrote me this sweet letter saying, "I feel like, we both have an angel up in heaven looking down at us. Thank you for reaching." Just kind and warm. And I think I was holding on to guilt that I couldn't make her laugh. But of course, a teenage girl, it's too big. You can't figure that. You can't change that. But it just helped me sort of go, what am I waiting for? Why am I not doing things
yeah.
that I want to try? So I didn't really set out to try to be a professional stand-up comedian. I took an acting class, and then I took an improv class, met a bunch of people, and then met someone who said, "You should really try stand-up." And I just loved it. I wanted to do it earlier. And then 9 months after I started, I won a trip to the Las Vegas Comedy Festival. So that kind of helps shift it to
Right.
the other level. But
Right.
yeah, so that's how I started. I even
That's
forgot the question, Andrea.
yeah, no, that's awesome. It was how we got started. You're still on the right question. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
but I think it's fascinating because you talked about, the idea of comedy and making people laugh and diffusing a situation. And I love that as well. I was actually voted class clown in my in my high school. So
I'm not
I and it
surprised.
was,
Right?
I just like to sit back there, make wisecracks, and make people laugh, and I think it is such a powerful, amazing thing, and I think it's so huge in the middle of tragedy, and, you had that whole piece recently about with your dad dying that I just thought
Yeah,
was
yeah.
so beautiful and, and just made me laugh so much and relate to my own dad's death as well.
Right?
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. So it's also very unifying, I think, humor.
Exactly. Yeah. So I know you mentioned, and I love your podcast, the Late Starters Club, because I didn't do comedy when it would have been the easiest, when I was single. I could have walked to, a couple great clubs in downtown Chicago. But so if you're thinking, God, I love it when someone says, I really want to try stand-up comedy. To me, I feel like if you just want to try it and then you don't want to do it, again, there's just no worries. Just try it. I think it would be fun
Right.
to try that. Yeah.
Right. I know there's a lot of people who are out there who want to try it and think they're funny, they're amazing people, they make people laugh, and I think it is fun. And so I think it is scary though. It's so scary getting up there
Yes.
talking about personal things. I remember when I was writing about how I was worried I was a terrible mom, and I was, like, so scared about saying that, even
Oh,
saying
yeah.
that, or
Yeah.
even saying some of the things that I say about my kids.
Right. Yep. Yeah. It's freeing though a little bit, isn't it? No.
It is
It is.
freeing. It is so freeing, and
Yeah.
so I think that if you are thinking about trying stand up, a class is a great way to get started. I feel like then it kind of adds a little structure to it. Open mics are hard. Talk about
Yeah.
talk about going to an open mic as a, 30 something female. How
Yeah.
is that?
It was tough, but I did have one friend, Matt Vogel, who was like maybe 6 months to a year ahead of me. So it was really nice to have someone who kind of knew, because back in the when was it? It was 2001 when I started. So 9/11 happened like a couple months after I had started. I would say break it down into baby steps. Like, don't feel like, I think you're totally right. And there's so many great classes out there, even online, like take a class online just so you kind of get an idea of how to do the structure, and then check out a place a couple of times. So you find out who's, you know, running the room, how does it go, how much time do people do, what, and just so you feel really comfortable with that part, and then you can just focus on when you're on stage, which will be terrifying and exciting, right? The
Yeah,
first time getting
it
on.
it is so exciting. And I think it is hard to it is I think I do think that open mics are tough because I definitely feel like as a middle-aged woman a lot of times open mics are full of 20-something-year-old
Yeah.
guys not really vibing with my midlife crisis humor here.
Right.
So it is scary because you may not get a laugh from that group. But I think what has been really fun for me, and you've been on the Moms on Hinge show several times, is that you can find your group. You can find, we
Yes,
pack a room full of moms and they all get our humor, right? They
that's
they
right.
they get it. And so I think realize that that maybe that audience is right for you, but another audience is for sure. So
100%. Yeah. Because I mean, A, there's being funny, and then B, the audience has to relate to what you're saying. If they don't, get it, then it's not that it's not funny
right.
necessarily. I wouldn't say that. I remember Jerry Seinfeld had a commercial back in the 90s when his sitcom was out, and he was performing stand up in England, and the audience was just sitting there staring at him. So then he went out and he learned how to play cricket, and then he went to the bar, a pub, and he did all these things, and then he went back on stage. And as an American, we didn't know any of the lingo that he said, but then the audience went crazy. So I would say that's something to keep
Yeah,
in mind.
that's
Yeah, but
awesome.
also not let it, like, still be okay to go to sometimes I go to Anthony Crawford's Lions Lair. They have a open mic on Monday night at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. And so it's just like, don't judge the audience and leave a space, and I think you would be surprised, often they don't judge you
Yep.
either.
Yep.
The bottom line is, yeah, is it funny or not?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So now so you didn't plan on becoming like this being kind of your full-time gig? I mean, I know you've done different things along the way. You've got some
Yeah,
great bits about about being an Uber driver.
right.
And then COVID
Mhm.
years, that was a whole different
Oh,
thing.
yes.
But but talk about how what has shifted for you in terms of now deciding this you're going all in with this.
Yeah. Uh, it is for me, it's a daily reminder. I have to remind myself every day what the big picture is and then what are the little steps I can do today because I will get sidetracked so fast. And then it's a balancing act because um I find I need to do something to write something about. Like, I'm such an introvert. If I left to my own devices, I would just be myself. And then there's nothing funny about that except for me. I'm a great audience and that's funny. So my dad just passed away. So I thought I'm going to learn how to golf. A lot of people golf and the people that I talk to who do golf go, that is the most frustrating thing you could ever do. And I'm like, perfect. There will always be limitless material then.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Like, so now how did so let's get back. I got totally off sidetracked. I
That's
sent you
fine.
all the I sent you questions and then I have gone off the rails here in terms of questions. So
Yeah,
let me ask one that I love to ask, especially for you because you had wanted to do comedy and then didn't and now you came back to it. But if
right.
you could go back and tell your younger self one thing,
Ooh,
what would that be?
yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I think, oh my goodness, the first thing that came to my mind, and this is not right, is like just really wanted to be a mom. I know but I always thought you should wait till you're older. I think I would have just had my kids earlier. Like, don't worry about what everybody says, do what feels right to you. Because for whatever reason, after I had my kids, I'm like, all right, now what do I do? Now that I got my first priority out of the way, now what are some other things that I would do? So let me generalize that a little bit more. Don't do what feels right for you, even though it may not feel right in society.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd be amazed, and I think that's a relatable thing, because regardless of what you're doing, people feel, um, like they're different, they
Yeah.
don't fit into the crowd. That is a universal feeling.
Yeah.
So you acting on it and showing up and being big about it is gonna draw people towards you, even if they may not be into the same thing you are, if that makes sense. So just try whatever and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's huge because I mean, really like we all feel different. I'm like, well, if we're all different, then aren't we all the same? I don't know. I
Yes,
like
that is
like
exactly
like
it.
we can't I mean, and I think that's it too, is that sometimes I know I talk to people who are like, oh, I never felt like I belonged. And I'm like, we can't all not belong. Like who
Right.
we
Yes.
So I think just it is hard to feel different though. I think that we want to it's a weird thing to feel like we want to fit in all the time and something about
Yeah.
our caveman instincts there
Yeah.
to
And let
try
me
and
preface too. I said everything will be okay. It's gonna hurt sometimes doing what you want to do or sort of taking the path, that most others aren't specifically taking. There's going to be other pains. And to me, I feel like that's been the journey, sort of getting over that quickly and moving on. I kind of muddled a little while with just sort of beating myself up a little bit.
yeah.
Gotta let
Yeah.
it go or find a way strategically to get out of that quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, having a short memory, I think is good.
Yes.
So like what do you think has been an advantage for you to starting comedy later in life? What has been something that's been worked in your favor in that in that journey?
Yeah. Well, I suppose I hemmed and hawed too much. So when I just decided to do it, I decided to do it. So and
Yeah.
just took baby steps to get there.
Yeah.
Make the decision and then take baby steps and alternate as you need to on the path.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, just dive in and go
Yeah,
for it. And
yeah,
now, like, talk about how your dry bar comedy special came about because that is so awesome. I love that you have that out now. It's just I love all the I watch that channel a lot, and I just think it's so amazing. They've got such great comedians in there, yourself included, of course. And how did that feel when you got that, and how
yeah.
did that uh, you know
I
getting on stage?
yes, Mike at Comedy Works Entertainment called and said, "Hey, I'd like to submit you for a dry bar special." And this was in December of 2020, so right in the middle of the pandemic. So I had not been on stage hardly at all. And when I was on stage, it was like outside where there
Great.
had to be
Great.
25 feet between you. I mean, everything, Andrea, that's perfect for stand-up comedy was a violation of health codes for COVID. We need to keep everyone far apart, no touching, so you gotta cram people in to make the laughter contagious. So it was really so I said, first of all, yes, I would love to. Please submit and please give me 4 months um, to practice just because they are a clean show. I mean, and I kind of ride the sexual innuendo sometimes. And that you could, they say you can do whatever you want, but you want to be in there.
Yeah.
What works best for their
Yeah,
audience.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
so I got it, and I got an April date, and then I practiced on Zoom calls to my parents, my mom and dad, every night to get the words, because that's what I find when I listen back to my sets. I record them all, and I don't listen to all of them, but I when I listen, I realize that I just have a slight hesitation sometimes if I'm not sure what I'm going to say next. And the more you perform, the more it flows off. And so I just wanted it to be set in there like stone. So I would just do a Zoom call and practice do a comedy show to my parents like I was 12 years old, for the school play.
That's that's awesome. That is awesome. I love that. Whatever works, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that with my mom. I've got some material on her.
Well, my
She
dad passed away and I had a show coming up, so my mom said, "You can practice." And it's not the same without my dad. She's like, "I'm gonna give you some notes. We're going to the bathroom." I'm like, "Oh, no. Nope, nope. No, we're not.
I don't want your notes, mom.
I love you very much. Thank you for bringing me into the world, but no notes, mother. No notes." But, I also too, like, just, I'm going back to if you wanna try comedy, how to make it
Yes.
comfortable for yourself. So I have 2 daughters that are now 24 and 27. So I asked the younger one who lives here, I'm like, "Could you please go to Utah with me?" Because my kids, they've been with me the whole time, and they're really good at just sort of chilling with me, and I just feel more comfortable and, like, light a little bit. I can get too much if I let myself go worry, wait,
Yes.
worry, start. And so if I have one of them with me, they're good. And they give me pretty good feedback. I like the feedback that they give me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's important to have kind of those trusted people who you can bounce things off of. I know
Right.
I've got kind of little comedy. I've had over the years different comedy mastermind buddies that we kind of, run material
Yeah,
by, punch it up, all that kind of stuff. I think that's super, super helpful.
it is
So,
great, yeah. And you gotta find someone that you click with, because
yeah,
early on, there weren't that many women. So
right.
sometimes men would come up to me and say, "You should say this." But, oh, I remember one, um, and again, they were being really one guy was being really nice. I said, "I keep my junk in the top drawer, not the bottom," talking about I have big boobs and no ass, which still bothers me to this day. And he said he used a car analogy. He said, "You should use the hood and the trunk of the car." And it made sense, but it was his analogy.
Yeah,
And I thought, I just don't relate to that. I think I'm gonna
right.
keep my own because it relates. So
Mhm.
not one is wrong, but
Right.
what feels right to you to say it. It's your voice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes people can give you a great punchline. Other times you're like, I would never say that. I had one guy who was, I talked about, I talked about how in my day lunch was a slice of bologna, side of Cheetos, and a
Yeah.
ding dong. And and this guy was like, you should talk about how your uncle had a ding dong or so. I was like, no, I'm not going to talk about that. Made
Well,
you sit
how
on
did
his
we just go
lap.
to
I'm like,
catch a predator? All of a sudden, we're into catch a predator mode. My uncle's a nice man. Stop it. Yeah,
I know. It's
yeah,
really weird when people try and give you punchlines for sure.
right.
Let's see what else. Oh, what have you do you feel like there's been like obstacles that you have kind of had to overcome in this whole journey around doing your comedy? What has been an obstacle that you've come up against?
Yeah. I always feel like the 4 agreements are good, and the main one that I think comedians, back me up if you think, can take things personally. Don't take things personally. And I'm not talking about on stage. I think I talk a lot about off stage, like trying to get gigs and things like that. And then recently, I've really been working on um, my mindset before I go on stage, and that it just takes an hour or two to kind of get ready,
Mhm.
just on the mindset alone to be,
Mhm.
and then work on getting the words right, because I will kind of trip up on my words a little bit, and that makes a difference for me. I notice it sort of, the audience subconsciously, it just doesn't get it rolling as much. So my mindset, I spend a lot of time now getting, I want to say happy. I feel like there's a better word, but just in the right frame of mind to go out. I'm like, hey, these people came. I think about the people the day of the show. I'm like, how exciting. I forgot how it was to have a regular date night because I've been doing this so long. I'm like, I wonder how that is to like get ready and go out and see a show. How fun would that be? And the people see me. You better bring it, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I better bring it. I'm like, of course, we're gonna have a good time. This is gonna be good.
Yeah.
So that's it in a nutshell. But just really spending the time to do that. And I do it
Yeah.
for emails now too. Like, I get so stressed writing emails sometimes, so I do spend that same time before I write emails or do the business
Yeah.
side, getting in the right mindset.
Well, I think the thing that is kind of interesting about comedy is how, like you mentioned, how important the words are. And they can, if you switch them around, it can really like totally take things out of a joke,
Oh, it totally can.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And and that can be the same in an email. I think is it's not as clear or whatever, but and I think just the performance of it too. I all of a sudden it takes me out like, oh, I didn't say that right, and then I'm thinking about that on stage, and then I'm like, oh, you guys are still here.
That's right. I will do that too. So here's one thing that I've done recently is I will just call myself on it or share that. like I was performing at a country club in Boulder. And as I was driving there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to take my daughter to her horseback riding lessons just right down the street, to someone who did really well with level 3 stock in the early 2000s and had like this massive horse ranch. And I'm like, oh, these people, and you walk in, I'm like there. And I did my joke about, I'm trying to be perfect, but I'm just going to do the 80-20 rule. And you can get so much more done when you're only doing 20%. That's the joke. And as I'm saying 20%, I am looking at these women in the front row and going, they have never 20%ed anything. So I was getting kind of quiet, and then you go, they hate me. This group just hates me. And then I'm like, we're just going to talk about it right now, So it's a balance of, you have your material and then what's going on in that moment. So I shared it. I go, I just realized that you guys don't care about this, joke, or not care, but anyway.
Relate to it. They don't relate. That is so funny. And I bet that killed it too. I bet that
totally
just
worked.
crushed. Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, I just have a couple. I could talk to you like for hours, as we know, but I want to just go through a couple of things. One of the things is I like to ask, like, what if you had to describe yourself or your life in one sentence, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna cry. I think because my dad just died, and I keep hitting my little thing. She made people laugh. When she left the room, people were happier women.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's something that I actually want on my tombstone as well.
Oh,
I think you can have it too. We can both have it.
We can both have it. Yeah. I just feel like that behind it is, I would watch the stand-up comedians on Johnny Carson when I was a little girl, and I thought, I just want to make people laugh so the surgeon can laugh and then go to sleep that night and have a good night's sleep and do what he does best the next day, or whatever, the teacher or mom or dad or whatever.
Yeah.
Make them laugh so they can,
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then the final thing that I always like to ask people is, what is a favorite quote or, just inspirational thing that you can share? I'm a quote junkie, so I love
that. I will even give you this song. I don't know if we can play the song, but the quote is from Tom Cruise's character in Risky Business. Sometimes you got to say, what the fuck? And just do it. And then my band, I love the Bluestones. They're a small band from Canada. I almost said they're a small band from Canadian, but there's actually Canada. And they have that in the beginning of their song, one of their songs.
Awesome.
So I've heard it a lot lately.
That is great. I think that is a good lesson for us all after COVID, after all the things that happened last few years. Just do it. So I'll just say that together.
Yeah.
One big mantra.
You can always go back. Yeah. At least you tried. Yeah.
So Stephanie, it's been awesome talking to you. If you want to, we'll have links in the show notes here to Stephanie's Dry Bar Comedy special. Definitely go and follow her on Instagram at Steph Comedy. She's also on Facebook. What's the Facebook, Stephanie?
It's Stephanie McHugh Comedian.
Okay, awesome. We'll have links to all of those. And Stephanie, I know I'll be seeing you around in some of our upcoming shows, but thank you so much for being a guest here, and so wonderful to chat.
It was so fun to chat with you too. Thank you for having me, Andrea.
Hope that was helpful, and make sure you grab the free guide, Top Tools for Late Starters, on the website at latestartersclub.com. And let's turn dreaming into doing.